can't handle some of the super powered.
Yeah,
decks.
like some of the decks like Tron and like Burn and stuff like that, they're just like too fast or too strong to like be able to do these like I want to do a cool combo sometimes on like turn 7 or 8, you know, where it's like not consistent enough, it's not fast enough.
All right, we got round. What are we in? Round 4 or round 5 now?
We were in round 4.
Round 4. Okay, so we are a 5-round night, guys. So we got Don Kingsley, blue-white mid-range. Awesome deck. Love this, guys. This is the deck I used to play a couple years ago. And then we got him facing Alex Campos, Grixis Control. What do you know about these decks, or is there a couple different versions of them, maybe, or what do you think?
Grixis is a very unpopular color combination in Modern right now. It's still like decent, just like all the other ones. It's just a black-based removal deck and stuff like that, and you just I'm not exactly sure which threats he's on. I've seen him play it once or twice, just like glances, and he seems pretty well versed with it. So
starting off here for Alex, a turn 1 Thoughtseize, my favorite thing in Magic.
Which is why black is always just so powerful.
Yeah. So he's getting to go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna answer the question here in chat. What is midrange? It's basically like a control deck that is has more threats, right? So instead of being mostly kill spells and counter spells, it has some kill spells and some counter spells, but it also has some hard to deal with creatures or just big creatures in general.
Yeah, I always like to think of it as kind of like it's a deck designed around like turn like 3 or 4 or 5-ish, like type of deck where like it's not trying to do anything like super broken like as quick as you think, and it has a lot of value. And if you kind of stretch out the game a little bit, it's gonna get it's gonna be able to kind of take control of the game.
Yeah.
You know, mid-range is like, you know, it doesn't have like always super light creatures. It'll have a couple, maybe like a playset or 2 of like some smaller creatures, but it's going to be mostly like 3 mana costing type stuff most of the time.
It's just in my opinion, it's just like it's a control deck that's aggressively slanted. So rather than waiting until the end of the game to play your threat, you're mixing in your threats and you're controlling.
Yep. Oh, yeah, so Itty Bitty Kitty, by the way, what I was talking about is just like the general question of what is mid-range. If you're talking about blue-white mid-range in particular, if that was your question, the traditional blue-white mid-range also plays more creature-based compared to the blue-white control. So like blue-white control, we're seeing normally like trying to kind of like do terminuses to board wipe and doing like large board wiping effects while looking to try and stretch the game out and control the late game. Whereas in blue-white mid-range is trying to get a little bit more like creature-based, get a little bit more like traditionally was like Wall of Omens, Kitchen Finks, Restoration Angel to kind of like blink these in and out and get your value again, and also dealing pressure as well. So it's kind of like. Am I correct or no?
Yeah. It's kind of like a more popular version of the deck is like Green-White Value Town.
Okay.
Which is kind of the same thing. It plays some similar creatures, Kitchen Finks, Restoration Angel to bounce its enter the battlefield effects, and does the same thing. This one just has blue, so it's a little more control-y than the all-in Green-White Value Town, which is just all creatures all the time. So over here on Grixis, we've had a pretty traditional start where they're just playing some spells to disrupt your hand, and then they cantripped with what is that blue cantrip that they played?
Which one? Serum Visions?
No. Oh. The one that mills himself or mills a target. Thought Scour.
Thought Scour, yeah.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep. So they Thought Scour themselves. We haven't seen this yet today. I don't know.
Traditional into Death Shadow as well.
Yeah. Where they have the Delve mechanic, which you exile cards from your graveyard to help pay for expensive creatures or spells. Thought Scour is 1 mana, 1 blue mana, draw a card, and then first you target player puts the top 3 cards of their library into their graveyard, and then you draw a card. So you target yourself, put 3 cards in your graveyard, draw a card, and it allows you to play these really expensive creatures with Delve very early, like Testiger.
Are we ever seeing like situations where like you would do that against your opponent, or generally just always yourself?
Generally, it's always yourself because you're always just going to get value from the Delve later, and denying your opponent 3 cards, just like when it's not your game plan, isn't very powerful. So now we have Ancestral Recall?
Yeah, Ancestral Visions.
Vision, sorry, thank you. I always get those 2 cards mixed up.
Yeah.
Ancestral Vision's non-suspend, so in 3 turns now, he'll draw 3 cards. So it's
usually pretty good in like I would say like it's really good in grindy matchups to give you just like some good card advantage. Like if you know you're not like worried about like the first early turns of the game, like it's something that's going to help you like mid to late game, just really be able to come back with card advantage, I think.
Yeah, and that's kind of like Alex's game plan right now, is that in the first couple turns, he uses hand disruption such as Thoughtseize and Inquisition to kind of deny his opponent the early game. So that's what he's taking. You know, he's not taking the big bombs because he can deal with those. So he's taking all the early stuff, and then and then for 1 mana, he's going to say, all right, later in the game, once I've used all my cards to get rid of all your stuff, I'm going to refill my hand.
Okay. So he's just going to be trying to pressure with this Kitchen Finks then, right?
Yeah, he's this is the second one he's played, so he's way ahead on life totals. He's been, you know, chipping in for damage and then gaining life on the swing. So it seems like he's really far ahead, and he kind of is. Now he's being able to animate Celestial Colonnade.
Hey, we got an Altered Art Celestial Colonnade there.
Yep. So he's really able to put on the pressure to Alex. He seems like he's running out of cards in his hand, and if he can survive until he draws these 3 cards, he might be okay. I'm not exactly sure his list behind how many like board wipes he plays, but the fact that Celestial Colonnade is a land when it's Alex's turn, it's kind of hard to deal with.
Oh yeah, for sure. Actually, it's not also. I made a mistake. Not altered. I said promo art there.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So what's Alex's game plan here? He's pretty low on life here. He's got to like look for a board wipe and an answer to the Celestial Colonnade, correct?
Correct. The Kitchen Finks will come back. It has not used its persist trigger yet, so he would have to have either 2 instant speed removal spells and then a 3rd to deal with the Kitchen Finks the second time.
Okay.
Or some kind of board wipe here, and it seems like he does not have it.
Yeah. So, Grixis control. How much different is this than like our our blue-red-white control?
Jeskai?
Jeskai, yeah. Sorry.
I think from my experience, it has less counter spells.
Okay.
It's more into it's more creature-based, so it has like Tassiger, and I'm pretty sure it plays Gurmag Angler and stuff like that. So it's a little more aggressive than the Jeskai version. So sometimes it just, like you saw, it just can't deal with certain things. Like its answers don't line up perfectly well.
Okay.
And especially since something like Kitchen Finks, where your deck is trying to kind of like 1-for-1 value and then go over the top eventually. Stuff like Kitchen Finks that just gains value from 1-for-1s, like you can't win.
So now, that was a relatively fast game for 2 control players.
It really was, honestly. Don got off to a pretty quick start with the Kitchen Finks, and Alex couldn't answer it quick enough.
Okay.
And like that's kind of sometimes what happens. Like, you know, one or 2 creatures can kind of get you there sometimes.
All right, let's go over this this sideboard here. So Grixis control from Alex. He's got 2 Surgicals, 3 Nihil Spellbombs, 2 Kalidases, 1 Damnation, 1 Izzet Staticaster, 2 Dispels, 2 Fulminator Mages, and 2 Angers. What are you thinking?
Here I would say Kalidas is probably really good because the mid-range deck is on like a decent number of creatures, and since it exiles, it definitely gets rid of the Kitchen Finks.
Okay.
And then also gaining zombies is pretty good. Other than that, that's pretty much all I can really see. We didn't really see a whole lot of stuff from Don's side,
okay,
especially in the creature. Like, we know he has creatures and we know he has like Kitchen Finks and stuff like that, but we didn't see exactly his spread. So it's kind of hard for Alex unless he knows like prior knowledge.
All right, let's look at the Don's sideboard here. We got 1 Lyra, 1 Celestial Purge, 1 Surgical, 3 Rest in Peace, 2 Cataclysmic Gearhulks, 1 Negate, 1 Disdainful Stroke, 1 Gideon, 2 Dampening Sphere, and 2 Dispel. What are you liking?
The Dispel seems pretty good. Pretty much all of Alex's stuff is going to be instant speed except for like board wipes and stuff. And then other than that, the Celestial Purge, just being able to exile a black thing.
Yeah, good card. I really like that a lot.
Yep, I think it's pretty underplayed. Other than that, maybe Gideon. And maybe Disdainful Stroke or Negate.
So Gideon, I like that a lot. I think we talked about that in week 1 here on our chat, but Gideon is like a powerhouse in like kind of like the long game matchup. Mm-hmm. Like if you can get a Gideon out, like just if your opponent can't deal with it, like it's just value town. You know?
For sure. And like in Modern, surprisingly, there aren't a lot of Planeswalkers. So like, it's not as common as it would be in, say, Standard to, like, just have incidental Planeswalker hate.
Okay.
You can still, like, Lightning Bolt it and stuff like that. But, like, Gideon, like, if your opponent just doesn't have the Lightning Bolt and you just, like, make 2 allies and then start animating it, like, it's just really hard to deal with.
Yeah, definitely. I'll try and get chat back up here real quick because I did see somebody ask a question that I was going to answer. I had the answer for him Trying to remember here. So, oh yeah. So, what is the top end for blue-white mid-range? I believe, other than like normally in their sideboard, like because in like blue-white mid-range, sometimes like I would think here, like a Gideon would be a top end for them. But like normally, like Cryptic Commands, Restoration Angel, like if they have them. But blue-white mid-range decks do vary. You're going to see different lists. But their top end is usually like some kind of big flyer that has some kind of effect, or a planeswalker, like kind of like similar to the control, except for like control now is super reliant on like Jaces and Teferis is like that's like their top end, and maybe they'll have some kind of like I gotcha card in their sideboard, but like mid range is like they're beating with like some kind of big flyer or like that Gideon is definitely like top end enough. I feel like
mid range is a little smaller than it would be in say standard. So like standard mid range, like your top end is like 6-7 mana, whereas in modern your top end might be 4 or 5 mana.
Okay.
So so yeah, like I could definitely see like the quote unquote top end being like Gideon's, Restoration Angel, stuff like that. Just like they're decent bodies and they have good value.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and again, this is a deck then that like they're seeing cantrips a lot too, like right?
Correct. Yeah. Like pretty much almost all decks in blue and modern have like some number of cantrips, and I'm thinking this blue-white deck has like a pretty decent number of them.
Looks like Alex is gonna mulligan down to 6 here.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is kind of a cool thing for anybody in chat. Dustin, how do you feel about mulliganing, just in general? Can you discuss that for a minute?
Sure. So there are hands that you would never keep on 7 that you would be able to keep on 6 with the Scry. Since the introduction of the Scry on a mulligan to 6 or below, it has very much changed the dynamic of mulliganing, at least the first time. So the first time you would very much not mulligan, right? You'd be like, man, 6 cards is just a death sentence. But with the Scry, it almost becomes sometimes even better than 7, right? Because like you get to like throw away something that might be not useful at all.
Okay.
So I think people should get used to mulliganing their 7 if it's not like, I don't want to say you have to have like the perfect 7 to keep 7, but like if there's a hand where you're just like, man, this is like super sketchy, like sure, throw it away. Yeah, like a Scry is pretty powerful effect.
So now what happens for like some decks when they have to like mulligan down to 6, they draw their 6, they have bad 6s, like is it dependent on like what archetype they're playing, you think?
Definitely.
Okay.
There are some decks like we had on Burn, like going down to 5 is like pretty bad. But there are some decks like mid-range, like more mid-range, some control decks and stuff that just like are able, like I think the big defining factor is how likely are you to be able to gain value off of your cards.
So I think actually in the graveyard right there is a good example. Like if you were a Grixis control player and you like mulligan down to 5 and you had an Ancestral Vision and a land and you were able to play that turn 1, then by like turn 3 you're going to be able to restabilize a bit.
Exactly. Yeah, so like that's like the big factor is can you gain value from your cards rather than trying to keep parity with your opponent. If you're trying to keep parity with your opponent, then mulliganing is worse.
Okay.
So going past 6 is not good. If you're able to gain advantage, I think you can go down to 5 pretty reasonably, and then like below 5 is pretty bad for any deck. So right now we have kind of a slower start from both decks, as to be expected. Neither of these are very aggressive, say. We just have I believe that is a Hallowed Fountain from Don's side, which he cast Opt. And then we have Alex over here is able to, for 1 mana, cast Tasigur again. This is really good for him. The blue-white deck does have a few ways to deal with this, but just being able to put on this pressure is really good. Serum Visions again, like we were talking about, cantrips, very powerful. All right, he keeps both, so it seems like it's going pretty well for him. All right, we got Field of Ruin and then a Wall of Omens. So this is a card, if for you guys don't know, 2 mana, 1 and a white. It's an 0/4 defender that lets him draw a card. It's going to take some pressure off of him, but not enough, as Alex has a Fatal Push for it. It did replace itself, so it wasn't a complete waste, but he's still kind of looking to stabilize the board here. And here's that Kitchen Finks again, back from round 1. Got some fetching going on.
Tasker is always, I think, a pretty good card in like kind of grindy matchups. Also, just for the fact that they can activate his ability if he stays on board.
Right. Yeah. And most of the time in these decks, especially after sideboard, like activating it, you'll never get a dead card. Sometimes it happens, especially like really late game when you have like a Thoughtseize or something, and then your opponent's like, all right, cool, I have no hand, have a Thoughtseize.
Yeah.
But like most of the time, you're like your opponent just has to like grit their teeth and just give you something good.
So like one thing too, anybody in chat that has seen in Legacy, Tassiger doesn't seem as much play as Gurmag Angler in Legacy. Is that kind of like a similar thing here in Modern, or are we seeing like kind of like 50-50 with them, or what?
I think Gurmag Angler seems a little bit more play, just because the bigger body. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just don't get like to activate Tassiger that often, like maybe once. It just like kind of depends. Most of the time you want to be like playing your value cards and stuff like that. So like it doesn't really come up too much.
Huge play here, by the way, from Don.
Yeah.
So he had Alex pretty much tapped out for the most part, and he was able to play that Gideon. Now we're going to see this Gideon be a big problem if Alex doesn't have some kind of maybe like a Cryptic Command or some kind of bounce spell to be able to get that Gideon down. Otherwise, his other option is he's going to have to like beat it down and maybe Lightning Bolt it, right?
Yeah, he can do that. He's probably going to get it in for 2 because obviously he's going to chump block the Tassiger with the token and hit it with the Snapcaster Mage. But being on Grixis, he does have a few answers, but you can see that he already used one of his Fatal Push and then used Snapcaster to flash it back already. So,
yeah, so this Gideon, obviously, we're going to see this be a big problem for Alex here.
Yeah, just even making a chump blocker every turn is really good. Even if he, like, for a long time doesn't activate it to make it a creature, just being able to, for free, make a chump blocker for this Tassiger means that he can use his mana and his resources to pull ahead.
Yeah, and then so if he does get ahead, then is he going to start swinging with that Gideon, or do you just want to always make the tokens, you think?
I think there will be a point where he turns the corner and says, all right, I'm in enough of a dominant position to start pressuring him back.
Okay.
So where he'll start attacking and just being like, hey, can you deal with a 4? And as long as he has the Tassiger, he will be able to like chump block the Gideon.
So what's Alex's Alex's main way to get rid of that Gideon is what? Probably either Cryptics. Does he run? He obviously doesn't run like any like hard removal against Planeswalkers, right?
No, definitely not. He could be running something like Dreadbore. I doubt it.
Gotcha. Tell us what Dreadbore is, just for chat.
Dreadbore is 1 red, 1 white, or sorry, 1 red, 1 black for a sorcery that destroys target creature or Planeswalker.
Yeah, that card we saw that actually Jund was playing that when it was resurging about what was that, like about 8 months to a year ago? 8 months ago, maybe?
Yeah.
We saw Dreadbore seen like a 1 or a 2 of in mainboard Jund decks.
Yeah, that's when like they really couldn't deal with like Lilianas and stuff like that. But now they have other answers, so they've kind of dropped off playing that. So right now it seems like Don is really pulling ahead. He was able to Path to Exile on the Tassiger, which giving Alex another land here is inconsequential. And then now he played a Restoration Angel at the end of turn.
And again, Resto Angel is just it's just pure value. If you have something that you're able to blink with it, it's great. But just on its own, just a flash flying 3/4 that is out of like bolt range. It's difficult to be able to like be pushed, I guess, because they have to have the that's just a good card on its own, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like some people underestimate Snapcaster as like just an ambush viper. Like sometimes in the matchup you're just like you can't, just beating him with a 2/1 is good enough, and making it a 3/4 flyer is even better.
So right now, I feel like Don actually is in a pretty comfortable spot, and Alex is gonna have to find something big here. But he can't just find a single answer. He needs probably 2 answers, right?
Yeah, so this is why Gideon is really good in this matchup, is because now he doesn't have a singular. He can't just draw 1 card and then pull ahead again, right? So he has to like have a good couple sequences. So
he's gonna need like a board, some kind of board wipe or some kind of sweeper or something, right?
Right, and then a way to pressure the Gideon.
Yeah.
And right now it doesn't seem like it. Like the best way for him to do that, I think, right now would be a creature land.
Okay.
But he doesn't have any, and I don't know if he's actually even running any. I haven't seen any yet from him.
So he would probably run like a creeping tar pit if that was right, something like that.
Yeah, creeping
right?
tar pit or what's the blue-red one? Wandering Funeral.
Wandering Funeral. Yeah. Wandering Funeral is a sweet card. I like that card. One of the cool things about Wandering Funeral is that its activated ability is like a 0, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you can switch it at any time.
Yep.
Kind of do some little tricky stuff with that.
Exactly.
So again, Resto is just going to be like a flying beater here.
Yep, and that's in a mid-range deck, that's just good enough.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So he's not running any Wall of Omens though. You didn't see any, right?
No, I did. He
did? Oh,
yeah, he casted. Casted on turn 2, and then that was what the first push target was.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So there we go. So Don just made short work of the Grixis control deck.
Yeah, and that was a pretty good showing for the mid-range deck because it seemed like in the first couple turns, especially since on like turn 2 he was able to get a Tassiger out.
Yeah.
And it's just like, whoa, like holy, like how are you gonna come back from this? And then over the course of like maybe 3 turns, he was just able to like stabilize, play a threat, and then get rid of your threat. And just run away with the game.
Yeah, I think that like that's always a deck that like could sometimes just do like a lot of things in Modern.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have you interview Don. Is that cool? Did
Sure.
you want to interview him real quick? I'm gonna look for backup match while I go grab him real quick. Anybody in chat have any questions for Dustin? Now's the time, man. Now's the time, guys.
Gideon is heck of a card. Yeah, it really is.